in Daniel chapter number 7. Daniel chapter number 7. We're going to cover a few verses tonight. I don't know how much I'm going to get to give you. I got a lot. I got a lot that I want to just give you tonight so that we don't have to bust this up. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into it. But this particular chapter, we've talked about before how the first 6 chapters are historical, while the last 6 chapters are prophetical. And because of that, there's a little bit of discrepancy when it comes to the layout of the book of Daniel. What I mean is this: chapter 7 chronologically should come before chapter 5 and 6. Okay? So we're actually chronologically, as in the timeline, we're actually going backwards. Even though we're going forward in the book, we're going backward in the timeline of things. So, and that's because we're getting into the prophetical portion. So, from here on out, we will be in the prophetical portion of Daniel. And from the reign of Belshazzar, I remember that guy, we're going to be in his reign, the prophetical portion of his reign in chapter 7 and 8. And then we're going to be in the reign of Cyrus and Darius from chapters 9 through 12. And so that's kind of where we're going to be. Now, according to the historical records, the Bible doesn't really give us any indication, but according to history, Belshazzar reigned 11 years. Chapter 7, the chapter we're going to be in, takes place in the first year of his reign. And then when we get to chapter 8, it takes place in the 3rd year of his reign. So go ahead and look at Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. The Bible says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. It says, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So you see a few things right off the bat in the first few verses here. Notice first in verse number 2, it talks about the 4 winds of heaven. These are likely, we don't know for sure, but these are likely the same winds that are held back from destroying the earth until the 144,000 are sealed in the book of Revelation. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Turn to Revelation chapter 7. Keep your finger in Daniel 7. We're going to be back there. Revelation chapter number 7. The first 2 verses. It says, and after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. So we see a correlation there of the 4 winds. So there's a great possibility that it's talking about the same winds there. Daniel saw these 4 winds toward heaven, and they're blowing upon the great sea. Now, this is interesting because you don't want to mistake the great sea, verse 2, from the sea, verse 3. Okay? In verse 3, it talks about these 4 beasts came up from the sea. Well, the sea in Scripture is a type of the nations. It's a type of the nations. You get that from Revelation chapter number 17. Well, the beast in verse 3 comes from among the sea, the nations, and the people. The great sea in Scripture speaks of the Mediterranean Sea. So this shows us where the beasts come from. It comes from, all these beasts, they come from the nations and the peoples. Okay? Which is going to make sense because these beasts are a type or a picture of empires, peoples, rulers, okay? Nations. But it also tells us the Great Sea. So it's giving us an area in which this takes place. Okay? So let's read it again. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. The focus is on the great sea. He says, and four beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now, let's get into the interesting part. Verse 4. The first, he's talking about the beast that he saw. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which upon the back of it had 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. He said, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. I'm going to hand out a verse to each person. We're going to take turns explaining it. You want to do that? Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 differing viewpoints. 2 viewpoints that are they're similar, but they're completely different, kind of under the meaning of what this all means, okay? And trying to kind of explain what all of this means, okay? Viewpoint number 1. All right, we're going to go back to verse 4. We're going to kind of pick these apart just a little bit. All right? So in verse 4, it talks about this lion that had eagle's wings. It's plucked up. He said, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given into it. So in this beast, we see a mixture of the king of the beast, right, and the king of the birds, which under this first viewpoint, and understand this is the first viewpoint, so everything I'm going to say fits under this one, which is a type of absolute monarchy. Absolute monarchy. King of the beasts, king of the birds. Absolute monarchy. Under this first viewpoint, this first beast typifies Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom of Babylon. So the plucking of the wings could refer to a couple of things. Notice it talks about the wings were plucked, and then it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet. But sounds a lot like Nebuchadnezzar. Would y'all agree? He had everything taken from him, right? So the plucking of his wings could refer to his pride and his demise. He had everything taken from him. He was put out to pasture, so to say. And then his sanity and his recovery where he's made to stand up on a man's feet and all of this. So that's the first viewpoint of verse 4. All right, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. So like the image of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, in this first viewpoint, like the image of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, y'all remember the head of gold, the arms and the torso of silver. I need to go through all of it. The waist of brass, the legs of iron, feet iron mingled with clay. Y'all remember Nebuchadnezzar's image that he saw. Remember when we talked about that, I said it devolves as you go down. Gold, silver, brass, iron mingled with clay. So, much like Nebuchadnezzar's dream, each animal is inferior to the one that precedes it. The bear is most commonly referred to or known as second in power to the lion. The lion is the most powerful and majestic in its movements and actions. The bear is slower. I didn't believe it at first, so I had to look it up. A lion's top speed, according to Google, a lion's top speed is 50 miles per hour. A brown bear, which is the fastest bear, top speed is 35 miles per hour. You know what I learned by that? I can't outrun either one of them. Right? Anyways, so the bear is slower. It's more awkward because of its size. And the bear depends upon brute force to conquer its enemies. Right? What's the first thing it does? Walk. It knocks the mess out of it. Right? I don't know. That's what I've seen on Discovery Channel. But that's what it does. Brute force to conquer its enemies. Well, in this first viewpoint, these were the characteristics of the Medo-Persian Empire. It said that Xerxes, one of the kings in the Medo-Persian Empire, Xerxes went against Greece with 2,500,000 fighting men. It wasn't about finesse. It wasn't about tactics. It was about brute force. You may come at us, but we've got way more to come at you, right? Brute force. Notice what it says. Raised up itself on one side. Okay? Many believe that this was a picture of this dual reigning. These two countries that had joined forces, Media and Persia, right? And Persia was stronger and more aggressive in this dual empire. So, under this first viewpoint, that represents Persia because Persia was stronger and more aggressive, right? And then it talks about the 3 ribs in its mouth. And in this first viewpoint, they believe that this represents the triple alliance of Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt, which came against the Medo-Persian Empire. So these 3 countries, Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt, they decided they were going to join forces and beat the Medo-Persian Empire because they were getting too big, right? So they joined forces and they come against them, and the Medo-Persian Empire absolutely crushed them. And so those that believe this particular viewpoint believe that is represents that triple triple alliance. Is that right? It sounded right in my head, so it came out of my mouth. Triple alliance that came against the Medo-Persian Empire. The Medo-Persian Empire was inferior to Babylon, not so much in power, but in wealth, in magnificence, and in government. Okay? Then, you have verse 6. It says, After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. And the beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. The leopard is the most agile and graceful of the beasts that are listed. It's slight in its frame, but strong, swift, and fierce. If I'm not mistaken, it's the leopards that will take the gazelle and climb a tree with it in Africa, right? And get right out of the reach of the lion and sit and eat the gazelle while the lion has to watch with his belly growl, right? So it's more agile, still strong, but swift and fierce. Under the first viewpoint, these are the characteristics that match the Greeks led by Alexander the Great. So under the rule of Alexander the Great, it matched the Grecian Empire. The 4 wings of a fowl speak of swiftness under this first viewpoint. It took the Greeks around 10 years to overthrow the Medo-Persian Empire and to subdue the entire civilized world of that day. That's unheard of. That's very fast, very swift. The 4 heads of this leopard represent 4 kingdoms under this first viewpoint. Y'all understand that, right? I keep saying that, keep saying that, keep saying that, so I want you to understand. Most of us, if not all of us, know that Alexander the Great died at it was an untimely death at a very young age, right? I think he was around 33 years old when he died, right? Well, when he died, he had not, because he didn't expect to die, 33 years old, he had not named a successor. He didn't have somebody to take his place. Well, when he died, the Grecian Empire was divided into 4 empires. Thrace, Macedonia, Syria, and Egypt. They were divided into 4 empires with 4 heads, 4 rulers, because there was no one person to step in and take Alexander's place. So that's the belief of what this typifies, the 4 heads of the leopard. Okay, verse 7. He said, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, let me go ahead and say that right there, it says after this. Some have tried to speculate, and this is not any viewpoint, this is just how it is. Some people have tried to speculate that when it says that after this, that what that is saying is that Daniel actually got a separate vision. He had a vision of the first 3, and then he had a separate vision. But I don't believe that's so. I believe that this is all one vision. You say, why? Because he also says after this in verse 6. Right? He says that, right? After this, after this. But for some reason, you read some people, you hear some people, and they'll say, well, they believe that. But I don't believe that. I believe that it's all one vision. He had all of it, and he's explaining. And then after this, after this, after this is what he saw, right? But he said, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. It had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horn plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. We're going to talk a lot more about this little horn, because that's really what catches his attention, is this little horn. It talks about 3 of the horns are plucked up by the roots, and this little horn takes their place. And it has eyes like the eyes of a man. The little horn, I believe, we're going to talk more about it later, is the Antichrist. Okay? We're going to get more into that. But I want to talk about this last beast that's different than all of the others. We're really not giving any explanation of what it looks like. Notice that? The first one says it's a lion with eagle's wings. I can see that in my mind. The second one talks about a bear. It's kind of a little higher on one side, got 3 ribs in its mouth, right? I can see that. But you get to the beast of verse 7, and all he says is it's dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, stamped the residue, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. In this first viewpoint, they believe that this last beast speaks of the Roman Empire. Roman Empire. And that is the empire that eventually the little horn comes out of, the Antichrist. Right? It's not the Roman Empire that was here at the time of Christ. It's a revived Roman Empire, but it's still the Roman Empire. This is what they say. Iron teeth correlates with iron legs. 10 horns, 10 toes. Here's what we know. This is not a viewpoint, here's what we know. Horns represent power. Represent power. Okay? So that's the first viewpoint. First beast represents, typifies the Babylonian Empire. Nebuchadnezzar. Second beast represents, typifies the Medo-Persian Empire, Darius and Cyrus. The third beast, which is the leopard, represents, typifies Greece and under Alexander the Great. The last beast typifies the Roman Empire with eventually the Antichrist, the little horn coming out of it. Okay? Now, I want to give you another viewpoint. This is what they say. The assumption is that the lion matches Babylon, the bear, Medo-Persia, the leopard, Greece, and the last beast, Rome, of which the Antichrist arises. But here's where the second viewpoint has a problem with that. Verse 17. We didn't read, we're going to read it. We're going to skip to verse 17. We're just going to look at this, okay? These great beasts, which are four kings. Here's the interesting thing. Which shall arise out of the earth. In the second viewpoint, this is what they say. Well, if the head of gold is the first beast, the lion, it can't be Babylon. Because, according to verse 17, these shall rise. Well, the head of gold is currently in power. Verse 17 says that they will be future kingdoms. Babylon, at the time this is given and written in chapter 7, Babylon is not just in power. We know, we've already studied chapters 5 and 6, we know Babylon's at the end of their power. Was it not Belshazzar, the last king? Was it not Belshazzar that the hand showed up and wrote in the plaster on the wall? Was it not Belshazzar that was in power in Babylon? Yes, he was a co-ruler, but he was in power in Babylon when the Medo-Persians took over. They took it from him. They took it from him. So not only were they not a future kingdom, they were a kingdom that was actually coming to an end. Well, so if you're going to, according to this second viewpoint, excuse me, if you're going to match the beast to the image with the different metals, you have to start after the head of gold. So the lion, therefore, wouldn't be Babylon. Second viewpoint. Y'all go ahead, keep saying that. I'm going to anyway. In this second viewpoint, the lion wouldn't be Babylon. It would be the Medo-Persian Empire. The bear would be Greece. The leopard would be Rome. And the last beast that is not described in Daniel would actually be the Antichrist kingdom. It would be his, under his rule, right? His empire under his rule. Which is the feet and the toes of iron mingled with clay in Nebuchadnezzar's image. So in the second viewpoint, rather than taking the legs of iron and the feet of iron mingled with clay and making them the one and the same, it would be separating them in the second viewpoint, kind of like they are separated in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Okay? In this second viewpoint, this is what they say. So what you have here in this passage, and that's not all of it. Right? The second viewpoint goes a little deeper. What you have here in this passage is a double application. The immediate application would be to the world empires that follow Babylon, what we just talked about, where you don't have to go through all of it, what we just talked about. So instead of Babylon, you knock them all down a notch, right? But there is a further prophetic application to kingdoms that immediately precede the Antichrist kingdom, which would be kingdoms, if the Antichrist was to come tomorrow, that would be kingdoms we know of right now, right? So in this second viewpoint, it says it's a double application. It speaks of those kingdoms then, and then also it can speak of some kingdoms now. These kingdoms, because it talks about the Great Sea, these kingdoms arise out of the Mediterranean. The two nations of Nebuchadnezzar's image that are surrounded by the Mediterranean on three sides are Greece and Rome. So under the second viewpoint, this is what they say. We need to look for nations connected with two empires that are symbolized by a lion, a bear, and a leopard. Second viewpoint. So you say, well, what empires are symbolized by a lion, a bear, and a leopard? I'm glad you asked. Okay? Britain was part of the Roman Empire. It has been symbolized by a lion. Not just a lion, specifically a lion with eagle's wings. You know what we call it? A griffin. Some of y'all should have known that. Right? A griffin. So Persia, Medo-Persian Empire, is a type of England. Second viewpoint. Okay? The bear is a well-known symbol of what country? Russia. Russia adopted the Greek alphabet and the Greek Orthodox religion. So after the British Empire collapsed, Russia dominated world politics from around 1950 to around 1990. Under this second viewpoint, Greece is a type of Russia. The leopard, this is where it gets interesting, is an integrated beast. Second viewpoint. It has a yellow body, black spots, and a white belly. Jogger. The nation known for integration today is what nation? Who's known as the melting pot? That America, second viewpoint. So Rome is a type of America. It's the last great world power before the kingdom of the Antichrist shows up in the second viewpoint. The fourth beast in verse 7, as we've already talked about, it's nondescript, as in. It doesn't give us a lot. But in this second viewpoint, it's described in detail, not here, but in Revelation chapter 13. Go to Revelation chapter 13. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto," tell me if these sound familiar, "a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." In the second viewpoint, the beast of chapter 7, verse 7, Daniel 7:7, is the beast of Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. And it's a combination of all of the other beasts that are listed. The lion, the bear, and the leopard, all joined into one big, multicultural, united nation. One world empire. So, that's a creature made up of several animals. Do y'all agree to that? Even if you don't say, well, Revelation chapter 13, Daniel 7:7, that's 2 completely different things. Okay, great. But in Revelation chapter 13, verse 2, would y'all agree that that is a creature made up of several animals? Would y'all agree with that? Hold on, let me get to the point. Would y'all agree with that? You know what the Hebrew word for that is? Behemoth. Behemoth. Talks about that in Job chapter 40 and verse 15. Behemoth is a plural beast. Beast made up. And it's connected with brass and iron in Job chapter 40. Just as you read it in Daniel chapter 7. Actually, look at Daniel chapter 7, verse 19. It says, "Then I would know the truth of the 4 beasts, which was diverse, the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamp the residue with his feet." Yes.
In Revelation 13, that beast had the mouth of a lion.
Yes.
You know what the most common language in the world is?
I'm fixing to talk about that.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the last beast is integrated like America, but it will move politically like Russia. Communism. Finally, the 4th beast speaks with the tongue, or the mouth of a lion. You know what? That's English. I don't know how to say that. The language of commerce and travel these last days is not Spanish, even though that's kind of what it seems like. It's English. That's the language of commerce and travel of these last days. And that's kind of what you see in this second viewpoint. That's kind of what you see kind of come to fruition in that last beast, the Antichrist king. How do you say it? So so much more than talking about how it connects, but I would rather do this. Yeah, this is just going to, I would rather do this, rather than diving into something else that we're not going to get finished, we're just going to cut out early. Is that okay?